Hey, what's going on, guys? So, today I kind of wanted to just go over, I think, something that is pretty common in that a lot of men, I think, stay in toxic relationships for the kids because they know that, if they were to pull away from the relationship, that they would see the kids much less, and that family court would be used against them, and that the mom would almost certainly, use the kids against him just out of vengeance, out of spite, out of a woman's wrath. And I've been through it. I'm divorced. I've been divorced for almost 10 years now, and I've seen every horror. I've lived through every nightmare. And I've seen just the lies, the manipulation, the smear campaigns, people writing legal papers against me who I've never met even, and that being used in court to try to take away my rights to see my kids and whatnot. And then I got in another relationship, and here I am 2 kids later with this other woman, and I'm in the same situation. And I was never actually planning on having kids with this person. She actually took medicine and vitamins to make herself as fertile as possible without telling me. She knew I didn't want kids. And although we always practiced safely, safe sex, since she was taking stuff, she got pregnant twice, actually. And it was really like a miracle because we always pretty much use protection, but you know how it is. One mistake, and and you think you're protected, and things happen. So I actually ended up having 2 kids with this person. And it's funny, actually, it was the same week that I had made the decision to leave, that she fell pregnant with the first one. So I actually stayed, in the relationship that I recognized very, very early on that it was toxic, that it was narcissistic, that it was dangerous for me and my health and my well-being. That's, right when I came to terms with that, that's when she fell pregnant with that first kid. So here I am now. Second kid later. I stayed for the first one because I wanted to be there for the first kid. I didn't want to be, I didn't want to leave her when she was pregnant and just not know my kid or whatever, just the whole. And I'm in France, so the whole legal background of all of that is very wishy-washy. Family court system takes a long time, so there was the potential that I would never even see the kid. I would never even see my kid potentially, if I didn't stay. And then the second kid was, and then, the second kid was kind of the same thing, Kid came along and I wasn't expecting it, so so here I am. Both kids are a little bit older now, almost 5 years old and 7 years old, and I'm still halfway in, halfway out of this relationship. And the only reason why I haven't really pulled out of the relationship is I'm still scared of the control that mothers have over their kids here, at least here in France, because I'm not in the best financial situation. I don't have a large dwelling, so And since my lodging circumstances were even non-existent for a while, I was living with the mom for a few years. Because of that, she is recognized by legal standards as the main provider of the kids, the home base. So she has all the legal rights, So even if I were to hire the best lawyer, just because the family system here in France, what would happen is the judge would give me minimum rights, most likely. So I would see my kids 4 days a month, every 2 weekends. And that would be pretty much it. And then maybe, during school breaks and whatnot, I would get half the time, which is good. At least I would get half the summer, half the Christmas break, half the, vacation breaks and whatnot. So there's a few weeks in there, But I would only see them 4 days a week. So that's why I'm still in this situation and I haven't fully pulled out yet. I am talking to lawyers and I am getting information in and trying to improve my situation, but it's all very slow. The economy here in France sucks. My bachelor's degree, my work experience from the United States, pretty much everything isn't really recognized here in France as being legit, just because it's a different system. And even if I provide the papers proving everything's true, I'm just treated kind of as a second-rate citizen here in France. And that's just the truth. So the result is I have to be a little bit more strategic about this because I'm in this bad situation, So I've been pulling back. I hired a lawyer, had issues, pulled out, and the court date got set back again. So the soonest court date possible is going to be another year from now. And meanwhile, if I leave their mother is going to probably block my guard, probably play the victim, probably lie, manipulate, whatever, and try to make sure I see the kids as little as possible. So I can't even really pull out of a toxic relationship. Although I'm living by myself now, the last 6 months I've been living in my own place and visiting the kids, and our relationship with the mother is just kind of like fake, minimum contact, minimum everything, and that's where I am. So I think a lot of fathers go through this type of thing, in that they realize that, like for me, I was talking to a kid in the parking lot. I met this, he was probably like 21 years old, and we were talking about women and whatnot. I'm not even sure how we got talking. Just some stranger. It was just some stranger that I've never met. So we ended up talking, and I told him, be careful, whatever you do, unless you're 100% sure, the number one mistake you don't want to make with women is have kids with them, because, with a divorce, you can sign the prenups and you can protect yourself legally, hire a lawyer and get out. But with kids, if you have a kid with a woman who's toxic, she's going to use those kids against you, knowing that, they are your flesh and blood, and that's the way that they can hurt you, And there's not much you can do about it with the family court system. I don't know if you've heard about the tender years doctrine, but if you are a father and you've been through the court system and you've realized your fatherly custody rights being stripped away from you, repetitively, despite all the proof of you being a good father, and you still see your kids on a minimum basis, then you know, you've probably heard about the tender years doctrine. So the tender years doctrine is basically what came, I think it was in the 1800s, when the child would automatically go to the mother because the mother was considered more physically close, just because of the mother-child relationship that is very natural. And so when parents are separated, no longer living together, since the 1800s, across Western society, I believe it is. I don't know if this is an American thing where it originated. I think it was like in England or something, and America adapted it. But kids just go to the mother, because the mother is nurturing and caring and loving and huggy and kissy. They are considered more important than fatherly care, and a lot of fathers are actually better at raising responsible children, well-trained children, respectable children who have a real outlook on the world. Whereas women, they provide the love and the nurturing, and they're very caring and loving, and that's all very cute and lovely and adorable and important for the kids to feel loved. But I think a father can provide a lot of that. Maybe not everything that a woman can, but it's not the same. But it is what it is. So now, I was telling this kid at the parking lot, I was telling him, be careful, because women these days, they just kind of take advantage of that, and it seems to have become very systematic. And I'm disappointed kind of in just the state of women in general, the way that they leverage kids to hurt the father. Because it's not really to protect the kids or for the kids' well-being or anything. It's just the spite and vengeance. It's just the venom of a woman, of a toxic woman. And it seems to be pretty much the rule, not the exception, in today's society. And I was telling him, just be aware of that and be very careful. And if I were you, I would think very long and hard before having a child, because, if you get divorced and no kids, you're fine. But if you have kids, even if you're not married with a woman, obviously you're going to love your kids. And if you're in a situation where, in a basic situation where the women, because of the tender years doctrine, the kids go to the women for the most part, then what's going to happen is you're just not going to see your kids that much. And that's just that, Which is okay, but the problem is, like, if it was just the fact that we would see our kids 4 days a month, that sucks. That's terrible. And it's brutal. But it's not just that. Because in reality, the court systems give women so much leeway for bad behavior that they can put it, like a woman, like the things I've been through, I could tell you story after story after story about why I didn't get my legal custody days as ruled by the judge, because their mother is just constantly playing in the loopholes to deny me my right to see my kids on my custody days. Even though my custody days are only 4 days a month, she still finds the need to try to cut me out of the life of my child as much as possible. And I've lived through this for 10 years with my ex-wife. She'll make an excuse that the child has a important activity. He has pony lessons, tennis lessons, pool, swimming lessons, his best friend's birthday, She'll lie about school days when the school is on and off. She'll just, I mean, I could write hundreds of pages on hundreds of instances where I just systematically have been pretty much stripped out of my son's life. And there's nothing the court system can do much about it because, you know, it's not every time that she's denying the rights, because she knows she has to kind of at least pretend that she's trying to allow me my rights. So if she cuts it out 100%, then she knows she's in dangerous water. But, you know, and I've gone to the police and I've told the police that, you know, I'm illegally getting my custody days cut out. And the police, they take the report and then nothing happens out of that. And then you hire a lawyer and the lawyer looks at, you know, custody rights for fathers, and, you know, they kind of be like, you know, this was an exceptional thing, you know, it's not the end of the world. And you're just kind of expected to accept it. And for you to make one small change in your custody rights, you have to compile like proof after proof, take, you know, screen captures of SMSs and explain what the SMS means and show all the communication that led up to that and the result, and then attach the police report. And it's just a huge nightmare and often results in nothing. So, and that's what I'm going through with the second mother of my kids. In December, you know, when holiday season was around, I have 3 kids, 2 kids with my current or so-called current partner. Although we're not really together, it's more just like some strange thing. Because I'm pretending because I want to see my kids and I don't want the vengeance of a woman trying to cut me out of their life. So I'm doing minimum contact. I'm seeing her like once a week just to come and pick the kids up, and I'm just kind of pretending things are okay and then going back and leaving at my place, you know. And I'm just waiting for her to pull the plug, you know, honestly, because fuck, you know, am I supposed to, if I pull the plug, everything will be my fault. I'm the abandoner, I'm the bad guy, and then she can play victim, and, you know, when in reality she's just super toxic and not accountable or responsible for anything she says or does. And I mean, there's just the toxicity and the non-accountability. I want out of the relationship. I wanted out of the relationship for years. I mean, this isn't like a new thing. This is, you know, I'm trying to pull back, and I've made a lot of progress, to be sure. But if I make that last step to finally pull out, I need everything to be legally squared away and perfect as far as my visitation rights are concerned. And that's just a long ass process to get that going. So I just got to make sure that I don't have any more kids with her, that nothing crazy happens, because she's very unstable and can be violent at times. And I just kind of have to manage the situation. You know, I've had so many stories where I've been attacked physically. Not just physically, but in so many different ways by her, you know. And there's no accountability on her part. She will just lie and say that it never happened. There can be, you know, life-threatening weapons involved. I think you can imagine what I'm talking about. If you're in the kitchen, what can you grab that's sharp and cuts? I've had these things pulled on me, put against my throat. I've had my life put in danger. I've had her pick up a baby and punch me while she's holding a baby. So she's basically using the baby as a human shield to be able to just slap me around. I've been pushed out of windows. I've been locked in apartments. I've been triangulated with male friends and mocked and made fun of, as I'm just expected to sit there and sleep in the next room because I have nowhere else to go. And I'm supposed to just forget all this and forgive and pretend that she's changed, but she hasn't changed, and she's ready to do all these things again. There's been no major change on her part, and I expect no major change on her part, as there's no accountability, there's denial of reality. She even said, oh no, I never pulled a knife on you, blah blah blah. You know, she's trying to gaslight me and make me feel like, you know, it's my word against hers. And I told her, that doesn't work, here's why. And I told her I already talked to her mom about it, I talked to my family about it, I've talked to friends, so she can live in her little fake fantasy world. People know the truth. And that pissed her off because, you know, narcissists, they generally like to be able to lie, and they hate accountability. And when you've activated certain accountability steps intentionally so that they can't lie and just say it was just me, they hate that. They just see red, you know. And I'm not here to say anybody, I'm not here to, like, you know, bash narcissists or anything, but the thing is like, narcissists have a very unique behavior, and it's very regular across the board. So it's just a useful word to use to describe certain behavior, you know. So it's just reality. So it's no judgment on somebody's, it is a judgment, but it's not, the goal isn't to judge somebody, it's just a way to let people understand what I'm working with here, you know. So it's rough if you are, and these are just like a few stories, you know. There are many things I could get into. Many injustices suffered needlessly. And I'd lie if I said I just forgave everything and I'm just so happy-go-lucky, you know. I didn't forget, you know, all these things. She even had her ex walk in the apartment and say, you know what? You know, you were such a good lover or something. And I'm standing right there. So awkward. So weird. I mean, she's just so desperate to get a reaction or to try to hurt you that it's just like, really? Honestly? You know? Like, it's crazy. You have to be crazy to do stuff like that, you know? My parents never had discussions like that. My mom would never dare even think about doing anything like this. Maybe think about it, but never did I witness anything like this. So I'm shocked to have lived through all this, because in my growing up, my childhood was rough, and maybe I'll talk about that in another video. But as far as my parents' relationship with each other, it wasn't perfect, but there was not physical violence, there wasn't triangulation, insults, or just complete falsity, lies, manipulation, and just people trying to hurt people like that intentionally, you know. And it's crazy, man. Like, so, you know, you got to be careful. And I would just say, be very careful before having kids in today's society. My experience has been shit on that part. My kids are my best friends, and I'm still very thankful to have fought to stay in their lives and to teach them things that their mothers will never teach them. Never. And I'm very proud that my children, the living souls that I brought into this world, will at least know that it is possible to live an upright life without toxic lies and manipulation. And although I don't see my kids that much, I feel very proud, and I feel it is one of my main life purposes to have brought them into the world in a semi-decent manner. Although I've struggled, I'm not always physically present, but I feel on the whole I give them a very powerful base to build off of in a good way to make a positive contribution on this world. But I think the main thing is that I am a bit of an idealist. But I think the main thing is when my son is old enough to have kids, he's 13 now. He's almost 14. I mean, just the world that we grow up in and the quality of women that are available. And I know there's better women out there, and I've certainly not chosen fantastically. I just think the main thing is like I would just be extremely careful before having a kid, to be honest. If I had known my life, like, I purposely had a kid with my ex-wife, so that wasn't an accident. I didn't really know who she was, really, when I got married to her, even though we had been together for a few years before having a kid. It's crazy, like, what people are capable of, So I am just extremely hesitant. I do not want another child in my life. I do not want to deal with bringing them up, raising them up in a toxic environment, having a baby, again, with somebody like that, being handcuffed to somebody simply because there's a baby in the house. Never again. Never. I suppose there is a world where finally I might get away from this relationship that I despise so much. And although I've pretty much done so, I am still kind of tethered because of my kids. And it just leaves me very, very worried about what could happen if I'm not careful having another kid. How did I even get in this situation in the first place? And there's a fair amount of self-blame because, I do believe in keeping myself accountable in the fact that I even let the situation happen in the first place. But I'm not a lazy guy, and I've fought tooth and nail for everything. But living as a foreigner in a country where you don't speak the language very well, where, materially you have very little to go off of, with the toxic court system that doesn't even recognize your basic rights or enforce them. There's just no enforceability. Maybe I'm just speaking from experience here in France, and maybe it's slightly better in the United States or other places. But the tender years doctrine is real, and if you're a father, be very careful. If you are a man and you're thinking about having a kid, I would advise against it, to be honest. If I did not have a kid, I would be out of this country that I'm not going to say I hate, but I just feel like my life is, materially destroyed from coming here. And there's no way I could know exactly where my life would be if I lived in the US, but I have to believe it would be significantly better than what I've accomplished here in France. Probably by a factor of 10 at least, I would say. So it is what it is. We got to go off of the present situation. And sometimes the present situation is you're in jail, falsely accused. I have a friend like that. Sometimes the situation is dire and there's not much you can do, You just got to bite the bullet. The thing is in life, like, you can't go off of what you want. You have to go off what is. And for you to go off what is, you have to take a real hard look at what it is that you actually live in, and not fool yourself into pretending that, oh no, maybe this person will change. Maybe they'll get better. No, they're not going to get better. No. After you've given them 10 years, you think after year 20, how many times have you tried talking with them? So my number one advice is just don't have freaking kids, man. Like, unless you are sure, unless you feel like, the only situation where I would tell myself having a kid was a good thing to do is if I was in a situation where I could basically, like, if I had a kid with a woman, I'd have to be in a very good financial situation where if the kid happened and the woman turned psycho, and when I say turn psycho, just imagine whatever your woman is like right now, imagine she's a demon, right? And I know that's crazy, but not as crazy you might expect. Be careful. Imagine she's just the worst person on the planet, and if you end up getting divorced with her or separated with her, that she's going to do her maximum within her power, financially, leveraging the court system, leveraging every person that she knows, lawyers and school directors and psychologists. Yeah, it's happened to me. Imagine she's going to get all her friends you don't even know, you've never met in your life, to write pages against you, things that aren't even true, exaggerations, just things that she tells them to write, and they write it because they believe her. Imagine that she's going to do that. You have to feel confident enough that you financially and logistically, as far as having your own house and your own lawyer and your own situation, where you feel like you have all your cannons ready to go and just ready to fire away. That's when I would say, okay, now go ahead, have a kid with this person, because then you have maybe a little bit of leverage. The family court system is still going to give her main custody, most likely, because of the tender years doctrine. They want the kid to have that little cuddling and the spoiling, and you know how moms are, right? Dads try to teach discipline and morals and right and wrong, and moms are there to tell the kid how beautiful and amazing they are, and huggy kissy kissy. And the family court system has decided across society, regardless of the actual real situation, that they're going to rule in favor of the mother. So the only way you can kind of a little bit put yourself in a little bit less worse of a situation is if you have all your ducks in a row, if you feel extremely confident that things are just, maximally to your advantage, logistically, logically, and you just want to have your little mini me so bad. Having kids is great, and it's cute, and I love them, and in many ways they're the best thing that happened to me in my life, no problem. But I only see them like 4 days a week. That's like that's the only thing the court system will give me. So how great can somebody be where you see them 4 days, not at 4 days a week, 4 days a month, right? Even if somebody was like the most impressive person you ever knew, the most amazing relationship, the best friend possible, the best romantic partner, just imagine you only see that person 4 days a month. Yeah, so great, you love them to death and they're freaking awesome, but your access to them is very minimal. Is that really worth it? Do you really feel like you need to contribute to humankind and repopulate the earth in this crooked family court system where fathers are just thrown aside like dirty rags? Like, sorry, don't have kids. Let me look into the camera. Don't have kids. Just don't. And I feel crazy saying that. You know why? Because my father and my mother, they brought me up in a house where they were both together. Yeah, it sucked. Sometimes it sucked and their relationship wasn't perfect, but they were always there. Father was there all the time. Mother was there all the time. There were no World War IIs or World War IIIs. It wasn't a constant control battle or a power play by the mother to control the father. And there wasn't triangulation, there wasn't physical violence, there wasn't character assassination, there wasn't narcissist, it wasn't perfect. But I never could have dreamed. Maybe I was just living in some freaking fairy tale. Maybe it would have been better if my parents had just a shitty relationship. Then I just wouldn't have had kids and I would have avoided all this. If I had seen that my father got systematically cut out of my life, then I probably would not have had kids. I probably would have just been like, put the rubber on and never take that risk, But I just had to, when I was a kid, divorce happened, and divorce rates were a little bit, probably lower than what they are today. But I just feel like women in general have just gotten so bad. Why would you have a child with a woman? I would prefer donation and like have me and my best friend or whatever, like we could raise a kid together. Like, I understand, I think honestly a lot of kids in like same-sex parents probably have it better than a lot of this terrible shit that happens where the mother just controls the court system. Because the thing is like, if you have two gay dads or two moms who are together, two gay moms or whatever you want to call it, like, by definition they have equal rights basically, because they're both the same sex, right? But here, because we are men, just because we have, what is it, XY chromosome or whatever, just because we have that between the legs, we are cut out of the family. And it's okay. I do not wish this on my worst enemy. If I did not have to pretend to be here, I would be long gone from this relationship that I've been handcuffed to because of a woman's vengeance. And my view on women is there are some good ones, but good luck finding them. Good luck. Because, those good women, they know that they're good. They know that they're sweet and whatever, You can find the toxic one. Yeah. Those toxic women, they have no problem, hooking up with anybody because they know they can just be toxic and the court system is there to support them. But a good woman, somebody with a little bit of morals and a little bit of good behavior, and, God forbid, she might even be submissive. Haha, good luck finding one of those. If you find one of those, wow, how did that happen? What lottery did you win? Well, you probably won the lottery, because the only way you're probably going to find a woman like that is if you have significant amounts of money and you have that stability. Then somebody like that might be open to being with you. But the problem is in today's society, I don't want to be Debbie Downer, but the economic opportunities are so much worse, I feel like, than in the past. My dad, he is a baby boomer, right? I was always told, go get your diploma, go study at school. If you get a diploma, you get a good job, you'll make this decent income, and things will roll pretty much naturally, So I did that, but, it's not the same economy, and having a simple degree doesn't mean shit today, in today's world. So in order for you to find a good job, good luck. The reality is that if you are average and you have a diploma or whatever, and you don't have a good job, a good revenue, then the reality is that's the majority of male population. Let's just be honest. That's just the majority of men. And that's the way it's going to be, and more and more as inequality continues in the same direction. And that's the way it's always been. But the court system just wasn't always like that. Before that, before the 1800s, men had rights to the kids. And we lost it. Good job. Where did this screwed up patriarchy come from? This thing that I keep hearing about, patriarchy, where is it? Because I see nothing but injustice to men. Good luck, man. Just be a single guy, don't have kids, and live your life. Find a woman who doesn't want kids. Get sterilized. Make sure she's on the pill or whatever. Honestly. Man, if it were me, I would have gotten sterilized from the very beginning and just never worry about this. Just find a woman who I enjoy her company minimally, or not, be single, alternate, or just not even have to deal too much with women. I know it sounds crazy to say that, what are you gonna do? Never have a woman? How are you gonna do it? Or whatever, but honestly, what percentage of your life is sexual? Not to draw visuals or anything, but sex is reality. Whether you are religious or not, people are having sex, right? So, but what percentage of your life is actually having sex? Let's be realistic. If you average it out, a few minutes per week or whatever, are you gonna burn down your life just for some physical pleasure because you just need that so badly? I don't know. I feel like as I'm getting older, I just hope that I continue feeling less and less sexual, because it's actually a huge benefit to me. Because being young and wanting sex and whatnot just brought so much down on me, it's crazy, man. It's crazy. Anyways, So that's my experience. That's my reality. I hope that, you all have better experiences and better realities. But like I said, you got to deal with what's going on. You got to deal with reality and move forward from there. So if you're a young guy or an older guy and you're thinking about having kids and you haven't had kids yet, think about that long and hard. Do some real research on family courts. Figure out what would be the case if you're lovey-dovey who's telling you, oh, I want a kid so bad. Wouldn't it be so wonderful to have a family? Blah, 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 blah. Do some real research on that. Like, if she goes bad, if she goes demon on you, what do your rights really look like in your actual situation? Assuming that she's going to lie and manipulate and do everything she can, and you think she's sweet, and maybe you think she's a good girl and she could never be like that. I thought that too. The thing is like when you pull away from the woman, especially if she's narcissist, she's going to have what they call narcissistic rage. So just the fact that you're leaving, first of all, don't get with a narcissist, but if you end up stuck with one, if you leave, her wound is going to be so big, she's going to want to destroy you on every level. So the only way you can really leave a narcissist is if they do it, and then they can't be the victim. And well, they can be the victim. They're professional victims, but the best way to do it in that situation, if they have narcissistic tendencies, is for them to eventually get tired of you, and and they'll pull the trigger eventually. But you just got to make conditions so bad on them that they get to the point where they can actually do that. And a lot of women will just stay in a relationship no matter how shitty it is, because they just don't have what it takes to pull out, And unfortunately, that leaves us men, when we're stuck in a relationship with somebody who has narcissistic tendencies, is now we have to set everything up perfectly so all our cannons and all our ducks are up in a row legally for our kids, to ensure we see them even 4 days a month, It's just so hard and so headache. So yeah, that's pretty much it. My main thing is like, I just hate drama so much that I'll just say nothing until like a relationship will just go so bad and be so poisonous that like, the problem is like women these days, you can't tell them your behavior is unacceptable. What you're doing is bad morally. You need to stop. You can't do that anymore. They just don't care, And that's crazy. So the only way that you can do things is if you are in an extremely powerful position and you know that she's going to suffer majorly if she's no longer with you. Not just a little bit. A little bit isn't enough, because she's going to feel like she has options. She's going to triangulate. She's going to find other men who are potentially interested. I was watching this thing, some TikTok video, whatever, some popular, podcast guy. I forgot his name, But he interviews women, and the women, like, they all think they're 10s, and they're all like 5s, right? But they all think they're super beautiful and whatever. And one of the women, she's like, yeah, my husband was crying. And he's like, why was your husband crying? And she's like, he was crying because I told him I wanted to be a prostitute, and I started prostituting myself. And you know what the crazy thing is this lady, she was like a 2 on a scale of 1 to 10 as far as beauty, as far as physical attractiveness, like a 2. And you know what that told me? That told me that she's got a whole bunch of clients who are paying good money, I'm assuming. I don't know how much she was charging, but for her sexual services when she's like a 2. Come on, guys. Like, a lot of it is like we've created the situation ourselves. Is like there are so many simps out there that are ready to like screw around with a 2, who are ready to like pay somebody who is like a 2 on a scale of 1 to 10. That woman, they can be as obese and as ugly and whatever, but if they have the tiny little, and sorry, this is pretty like X-rated, but if they have the goods, then we just give them the world. Come on, guys. Is this the world you want your sons and your daughters to live in? How did we end up here? What kind of demonic, diabolical shit system and world have we created? I don't know. I mean, the pendulum has got to swing back, and it has got to swing hard. I don't care about violent, but it's got to happen, and it's got to swing back, boys, because I don't even know how we got in this situation. Anyways, I'm trying to be positive here. And I didn't have much in mind other than to say that be careful for this video. Main message I wanted to get across for this, and this is like an hour long already. Totally unexpected on my part. I've never made a video this long. And I was thinking I have nothing to say. But this has actually been one of the strongest things I've needed to talk about. Is like the main thing I wanted to say on this video is like, just be careful before having kids. Don't have kids. I would just say don't have kids. The only problem with that is humanity would no longer be here. But humanity sucks right now, right? I mean, look what we've gotten ourselves into. Is it so bad to be single? Is it so bad to be by yourself in your apartment? Is it so bad to not be handcuffed to somebody who's going to manipulate every second of your life? Is it so bad to be single and just walk around and live your life how you want? To spend your money how you want, to spend your time how you want, to go home and watch TV without having somebody nag you? Do we really want a woman so bad that like torturing ourselves with somebody toxic is like our idea of an improved life? Because that's what it's come down to. Are we so mesmerized by the beauty of a woman? Wow, Are women really that beautiful exterior? They're not, like, interiorly, like, most of these women have nothing, On a real human level, on a real moral level, on a real base level. I know there's good women out there. I don't want to say all women are bad, and I don't want to demonize women, and there are women that I love, but let's be real. Like, I'm not trying to say, all women are like this. I do still have hope that there are a few good women left in this world. And I do know a few women that I respect. It's not a lot. There are even some beautiful women that I know who I respect considerably. But even these beautiful women, they pretty much have things going because they got a man who's going to hang on to them. And he's going to pay for that. And she knows that. And so her life's going to be significantly softer, more comfortable. But anyways, that's pretty much all I got to say. I feel like I'm rambling. I feel like I feel like this video might come across bad, Like, this might come across in a way that I didn't want, but I'm going to go ahead and post it anyways, just because it's real and it's from my real lived experience, and it's from what I observe in the world. I observe a lot, I see how, beautiful women and not so beautiful women I see the difference in realities that they live. But I would still rather be, if my main goal in life was to live an easy, comfortable life, I would want to be a woman light years before a man. Just because of exactly like I said, just like, even if you're like a 2 on the spectrum of 1 to 10, you're gonna find some guy, you're gonna find, you still have considerable power over, like, a ton of guys. Yeah, the good looking jocks who are real good looking, they're probably not gonna want you. The rich men, you know, who have financial stability, they're probably not gonna want you. Although we're not all based on visual. There are men who could care less about how women look and their physical beauty. I'm kind of one of them. I don't really rate a woman off of strictly what she looks like, although there's a level of importance to that. But anyways, it is what it is. I don't have much else to say, so hopefully this didn't come across too badly. And just be careful, guys. Protect yourself, and just think long and hard before ever having a child in your life, before ever having a kid. Get a dog. Even if you're married, don't have a kid. She wants to get married, go ahead, get married. No problem. Sign those papers, get a prenup. She wants a new car, buy her a new car. Buy her expensive gifts, but don't have a kid with her. I mean, the amount of trust you need to have in a woman to have a kid with her, I would say, like, if she is ready to, like, cut her arm and leg off for you, or, you know, I mean, that would be about it, you know. Otherwise, don't do it. Do other things for her. But don't have a kid, because a kid is like something that you're going to love more than, like, imagine you have a dog and you love the dog and you can't see the dog anymore, but times a billion. Your kid is going to be like the center of your life, right? And you're going to have a kid with this person and you're going to have no control over it. And that's just reality. So go talk to your lawyers, go look at family courts, go look at statistics as far as custody is concerned. What really happens when you have the vengeance of a woman against you. And if you ever have a kid with a woman, you have to be ready to stick it out with this woman, because you've decided that she's just that amazing that you're willing to be her slave. Or you have to basically cut your heart out of your body and accept that you're probably not going to be in your kid's life that much, and that's going to be okay. And you figured out the logistics of exactly what that's going to look like. Otherwise, don't have kids. That's it. Ciao.